All right, so today's video is thoughts. There's something funny about it, and I want you to look. So this is a map slash structure maybe that I was trying to like explain to myself. So thoughts and the transition or translation. I don't know, but I split it into two parts because like thoughts are produce and are a product of your character and your personality. Yes, no, maybe, I have no idea. And then personality basically is based on emotions and feelings here, emotions and feelings, while the character is based on values and principles. And both of them are the base. And at the bottom here is like where we become more creative. The balance and space for thoughts to exist in our free will is only, what the fuck, dude? Okay, where we become more creative. That's basically a part of this. And I think the idea is like, where does creativity come from, right? And we're always talking about harmony, and harmony is basically when things kind of like are in tune. It's all musical. Anytime we're talking about something kind of like, it's all is. Even when you talk, when you're, how do you describe harmony when you're talking about dance? I think we still use musical like notes because all of this is basically a result of music, right? All of art. Well, there's visual art that's not really a result of music, but dancing is technically like because you're following a beat, and the three elements of music is melody, harmony, and beat, and rhythm. Rhythm is the beat, the beats, right? Stuff like that. So, anyways, so the balance and space for your thoughts to exist in, right? You which we build the base. Okay, our free will is only the base. So, where creativity happens, or where creativeness happens, or where creation happens. Naturally, I can't read the word that I wrote, but where we become more creative is basically the balance within that space between where your emotions and feelings exist. That basically is those support your personality and your personality support them. And basically, on the other side of the space is basically where values and principles exist, which work with your character. And that space in between is where kind of creativity comes up. And in a way, if we were to think about it from like a space in between these two kind of like main main constructs of our presence, huh? Can't say presence because effectively what we're doing is we're reflecting on our ego. A character trait is an ego trait because technically whoever you are is expressing through something. So there's a space between your personality and character. And let's just say you're the type of person basically you're out of principle, for example, you don't use aggressiveness when you're interacting with people. I hope you guys are hearing me properly. Out of principle, you don't use aggressivity. And basically, there's a situation where you kind of like have to raise your voice. the more you're able to raise your voice without sounding like you're yelling, the more whatever you're saying, for example, is actually reaching the people that are listening to you. Because you're still basically adhering to your principles slash values, right? And ideally, I'm using it, the way I'm seeing it is like there are 10 people talking, and you basically are trying to talk to one of them or two of them. And each one is kind of like talking, so you kind of have to like, your voice has to reach them. The easiest way is to raise your voice because ultimately, like a louder voice basically gets heard. But that kind of creates more chaos. Whilst if your voice is actually reaching and is more in harmony with basically you, because ultimately you're maybe it's just deeper, maybe it's enunciating differently. I don't know. We're just kind of like seeing how we could be creative in sending our message approach as long as we're still following the principle of like I don't like to be aggressive because when you're yelling, that's aggressiveness or that's aggressive energy. So in fact, but if you look at it, you kind of like anyone else who's out of harmony basically will end up harmonizing with you. They either start listening or kind of lower their voice and start talking in a way where only the person that they're talking with. So it's kind of fun to imagine it from this perspective because creativity is literally everywhere and everything. So where we become more creative, basically, is is that baseline between personality and character, because those are where the emotions and feelings that are kind of like the drive and the values and principles which are the support. And so I would think of that space from a car's perspective, like, because there's the engine that moves the car, and I feel those are the emotions and feelings because they're not consistent, right? Whilst values and principles are solid, which are basically the design of the car, like the structure, the wheels, in French they call it carénage, it's like the chassis of the car, like the solid stuff that kind of like that keep you alive. And emotions or feelings are the fuel. It's like because like that's where your passion kind of lies. Like, all right, I'm the kind of guy that doesn't like to yell, but let's face it, if I don't want to be aggressive, and unless I have some feeling that I want to express on the outside, I I probably wouldn't need to do anything. I'll probably just basically chill, right? So emotions or feelings are kind of necessary because they're kind of like absorbing and projecting what is it that we're trying to express. Well, the values and principles are the support system or the structure of how it gets expressed. I like it. I like this approach to it. And the balance in between them, there's that space in between which kind of like balances, like, and that's where kind of harmony is created. And here I mentioned the free will because the free will is that space that we build on top of. So if I'm looking at it like this, because here I start with thoughts and then basically like character and personality, and then ultimately like emotions, feelings under personality, and values and principles under character. And there's this base, and this base is what we call, for example, is what I'm trying to call maybe free will, because that's where my intention starts. That's where my intention takes a step forward and starts kind of like moving and changing into something, into anything. And if I choose to neglect, like if I choose to approach it more from a personality's perspective, less of a character's perspective, that doesn't really mean that I'm actually denying my principles and values. It probably means I'm more passionate. Just going back to the car, it just probably means I'm moving faster, I'm I'm speeding up or I'm driving recklessly. Or if I'm approaching it from a character's perspective, it's a more subtle expression because it's not uh, it's not it's not overwhelming. There's not that much energy that's overflowing, so it's a subtle expression. It's like driving still with the car, but like taking your time, kind of thing. Our intention is basically like what triggers the free will at the base, and the free will is the combination of your values, principles, emotions, and feelings. Kind of like the concept of when you let go, you're still the one who's making the decision to let go. I decided to let go, and then that kind of goes, oh, I let go, it's over. See, I don't know what's going on in my mind, bro, but in truth, it is these videos that actually make me think, while other videos seem to be a summary of a thought, or like just an expression going differently. Ah, it's a video, babies. I love